Hey guys, and welcome to another What's for Dinner video. On Sunday, we had some orange chicken. This is a recipe that I found in my Pioneer Woman cookbook, but I did find it online, so I'll leave it linked down below. So here, I just diced up some boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and now I'm getting the batter ready. So I just have 4 egg whites, and I was supposed to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, but I ended up adding 3 because I didn't fully read the recipe before I started, but it turned out fine, so it's okay. So we're just making a batter for the chicken, and we're going to put the chicken in there, stir it to coat, and just set it aside while we do some other things. So I went ahead and got some rice going in my rice cooker because we were going to serve this over some white rice. So that's just basic pepper, salt, butter, and water in there. And now I'm going to chop up some zucchini and some onion because I wanted a vegetable with this as well. So after we get this chopped up, we're going to put it in a bowl and add some olive oil and some salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And we're just going to put this in the air fryer on about 400 for about 10 minutes, and it should be ready to go. Now we're going to make our sauce for the chicken. So I am just zesting 1 orange, and I used the juice of 2 oranges. You could just use regular bottled orange juice. I just didn't want to buy it because I don't really like orange juice. So I just got some fresh oranges and used the juice from those. So to our pan, we're going to add the orange juice, some soy sauce, some rice wine vinegar, and some brown sugar. And we're also going to add some olive oil. It called for sesame oil, but I didn't have any. So I just put a little drop of that. And then I put some red chili flake and some salt and pepper. And then I also put some ground ginger. It called for fresh, but I didn't have that either. And then some garlic and the zest of that orange that we zested earlier. And we're just going to let that come up to a boil and then thicken it with a slurry and set that aside. But this is what it should look like when the sauce is done. It's just thick and it smells really good. But anyways, we're going to start frying our chicken now. So into a pot of oil, I am just dropping the chicken piece by piece into the hot oil. It's said to do this in batches so that you don't drop the temperature of your oil. And I always just use my meat thermometer to check the temperature of the chicken before I remove it to make sure it's fully cooked. But the breading on this turned out beautiful. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting it to turn out quite this good. So I was really surprised by that. When our vegetables were done, I just tossed them with a little bit of the sauce that we made for our chicken. And those smell delicious as well. We really like zucchini, especially cooked like this. But we're adding our chicken back to our pan, and we're just going to toss it around in the sauce, and dinner is ready. So I just added some sesame seeds just because it called for that sesame oil and I didn't have it. But this is what it looked like when it was done. This was really good. It was very heavy on the orange flavor, so if you're not a fan of oranges, I don't think you would like this. But I highly recommend trying to fry some chicken like this and tossing it in your favorite oriental sauce because that breading was absolutely perfect. On Monday, we just had hot dogs. I know y'all have seen these before. This was just air fryer weenies, and I microwaved some chili, topped it with cheese, and we have some mustard on there. I was lazy on Monday, so I didn't even cook anything to go with it, but we always like a good chili hot dog in this house, so simple, delicious, quick, easy. Sometimes that's what you need for a Monday. On Tuesday, I made this Cincinnati Chili that I found in my other Pioneer Woman cookbook. I had never seen anything like this. Putting chili over spaghetti noodles is definitely not a thing in South Carolina, but I really wanted to try it, so we gave it a go. I did prepare it a little differently than the cookbook said, and that's just because it had to cook for an hour, and I didn't want to have to wait that long after work because we're like old folks and we eat dinner early in the day. But here I'm just sauteing an onion and some garlic, and I added some ground beef to that, and I'm just going to brown that ground beef in with that onion and garlic until it is fully cooked, and then I'm going to drain off the grease and add that to a crock pot. So here I'm just adding some tomato sauce, some water, some beef broth base. You can just use beef broth instead of water. Then I'm putting some chili powder, and I think that was maybe like paprika, cumin. I'll leave the recipe link below. But the recipe said to cook this on the stove, but I just did it in the crock pot while I was at work. And this also had like cinnamon and allspice and all kinds of stuff in there that I have never put in chili, so I was a bit nervous. But this is what it looked like before I cooked it, and then this is what it looked like after it cooked all day. Well, not quite, because I took my time stirring. But this is what it looked like after I cooked it. It smelled really good. I could kind of smell the cinnamon, and that kind of weirded me out, but it ended up being really good. So we just put this over some spaghetti noodles and topped it with cheese. If I'm not mistaken, this is called like a Cincinnati three-way. I could be completely wrong, but I think I'm right. But this was really good. It was definitely different because I've never had anything like it, but I'm glad I tried it. On Wednesday, we had some chicken wraps, so I just found these at Food Lion, and they did not taste anything like dill. I think it was their attempt of like their version of Chick-fil-A, but I'm just chopping up those chicken tenders that I cooked in my air fryer, and on my husband's, I'm just doing cheese, the chicken, and topping it with some barbecue sauce. That's all he wanted on his. So I just wrapped that up like a burrito and sliced that in half, and this is what the inside of his looked like. And then I jazzed mine up a little more than his. So I have some whipped cream cheese on my tortilla, and then I'm also going to put some shredded cheese and some bacon bits, then the chicken, and then some buffalo sauce. So I just did kind of like a buffalo chicken wrap. It was really good. So again, I just wrapped it up like a burrito, cut it in half, and this is what the inside of mine looked like. I didn't end up making anything to go with these because these wraps were actually pretty big, so I just served mine with a side of ranch, and that was dinner for Wednesday night. This came together really fast and they were really good. We will make these again just because they were so easy, and I love anything buffalo chicken, so this was a winner for me for sure. On Thursday, I made a big pot of pinto beans. So this is the night before. I'm just rinsing my pinto beans really well, and then I'm going to put them in a bowl and cover them with water. And those are going to sit on the countertop overnight. And also the night before, I went ahead and got everything else ready for the pinto beans. So all I had to do in the morning was pop them in there. So I have a diced onion and some diced miniature bell peppers, or the mini sweet peppers, and I'm putting those into my crock pot insert. I'm also going to add some garlic, some diced tomatoes, some tomato sauce, some chicken broth base, some Cajun seasoning, and then this is just some diced ham that I had in my freezer. And I'm adding some chili powder, onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper. And then I'm going to add some lemon juice, hot sauce, and some water. I did about 8 cups of water, and I gave that a stir. And that was everything that's going to go in the soup besides the beans. So the next morning, I just drained off all the soaking water, rinsed them, and popped them in the crock pot. And these cooked on high for 8.5 hours. And this is what it looked like after I got home from work. So the beans are fully cooked and they smell really good. So here I'm going to make some homemade cornbread to go with our beans. So I'm just putting some bacon grease into my cast iron skillet and putting that in the oven so it can heat up. And in my bowl, I'm adding all of my dry ingredients. So I have some cornmeal, some flour, some salt, baking soda, baking powder, and I'm just going to mix that together. And in another bowl, I am cracking some eggs, and I'm going to make some buttermilk, or not really a buttermilk substitute because I didn't have any. So that's just 2.5 cups of milk with a little bit of lemon juice. But to my eggs, I'm adding some sugar, and I'm just going to mix that until it's fully combined. And then I'm going to add some oil into that. I used about a 1/2 cup of canola oil. And then I'm going to add that milk into there. And so it's pretty much just getting all your wet ingredients together. After those are combined, you're going to add that to your dry ingredients, and you're going to give it a mix. You don't want to over mix it, but just mix it until everything's fully incorporated. And then you're going to put that into that hot skillet. And this is going to bake on 375 for about 30 minutes or so. This is what the cornbread looked like when it was done. That little bit of powder on there is where I didn't get it fully mixed in, but it turned out just fine. And this was our dinner for Thursday night. So we have a bowl of those beans and that cornbread, and it was really good. I love anything that I can throw into my crock pot and not really have to worry about it. So all I had to do was come home and make some cornbread after a long day at work. So this was nice, and it was really cold outside this day, so it really hit the spot. So if you haven't made beans like this, I recommend. We really enjoy them. It also works out well with really any kind of dry bean that you have, so give it a try. And on Friday, we had these chili cheese enchilada things. I found the recipe on foodnetwork.com. It's another Pioneer Woman recipe. These were our favorite recipe of the week. They were so good. So I am just browning some ground beef, and that had some onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper in with it. And I'm just going to put that on a paper towel lined plate to drain, and I'm going to start this sauce. So that was some beef broth, some crushed tomatoes, some chili powder, some tomato paste. Then I'm adding some paprika, some cumin, some hot sauce, and we're going to give that a stir. And this needs to cook for about an hour. The recipe called for like whole canned tomatoes, and you're supposed to blend up the sauce, but I don't have an immersion blender, so I just used the crushed tomatoes and it turned up fine. And here I have some cheese. So I have 3 different kinds of cheese. I've got pepper jack, cheddar, and then like Velveeta, the Food Lion brand. I think when it said grated processed cheese, it meant like American, because trying to grate up Velveeta was so messy. So I do not recommend. So I'm just rolling that cheese mixture into these tortillas, and I'm gonna do 12 tortillas. These are the little 6-inch tortillas. So after I get those all rolled up and into the pan, you should have a little bit of cheese left over. I'm gonna thicken up that sauce with a slurry, and we're gonna add that ground beef back into the sauce. And we're just gonna give that a stir, and this is what that chili sauce looks like when it is done. And we're just going to ladle this over top all of the cheesy tortilla roll-up things. I think you could use corn tortillas too if you had those on hand. I always thought enchiladas had corn tortillas, but the recipe called for flour, so I just followed the recipe. And we're just going to top that with the rest of that cheese left over from filling up the tortillas, and this is going to bake on 375 for about 20 minutes. Here I'm getting some Mexican rice going, so I'm just sauteing some white rice in some canola oil until it starts to turn golden brown. And I'm adding some water, some tomato sauce, some chili powder, some garlic, and a little bit of beef broth base. Just because I didn't have broth, I used water. And we're just going to let this cook for 20 minutes and fluff it up. And then this is what the enchiladas look like when they come out of the oven. These smelled so good, and they were so good. It really scratches that itch if you are craving like Mexican food. It felt like it was like a Mexican restaurant. It was so good. They're not the prettiest. They look kind of messy on the plates, but I'm telling you, if you try anything from this video, try these enchiladas. You will not regret it. But that is all I have for you this week. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I would love to have you here. And I always appreciate you guys for watching and commenting, and I'm just so glad you're here. Bye, guys.